I stopped my video because of slow internet, but I can see everyone.
This meeting is being
so that
recorded.
is what we discussed in our closed session. And now we will have a discussion about the approval of the agenda. So we have the agenda for this evening. Are there any substantive changes that people wish to make, the council wishes to make on the agenda?
Richard?
Yes.
Go
ahead, Richard.
Yes, I just wanted to add an item just to discuss an update on the city's tribal consultation policy for government-to-government meetings.
And we can't add an item without the 72-hour notice. So we'll have to discuss that at a future meeting, unless you have an update from a discussion you've had. But as far as an agenda item, we can't add items to the agenda without that 72-hour notice.
Can that just be an item from the floor? Is that something I can discuss at that point?
You can certainly, councilmen don't generally use items from the floor. That's for non-agendized items. You can have it in your, you can do that if you want, or have it in your staff or council report, as long as it's not a discussion item.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other substantive changes to the agenda that we need to make? All right, any, let's see, we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
First by Grover, second by Wes. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes. At this point, we will discuss and seek approval for the minutes from the September 8th meeting and the September 22nd. We'll do those separately. So in the September 8th meeting, the minutes, version 2 with the edits that were requested. Do we have any discussion or substantive changes? Do we accept, rather, the changes made to the September 8th meeting minutes? No substantive changes? No. We agree with the changes made?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
From the September 8th?
September 8th.
Yep. First from David, second from Jack. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Now for the September 22nd, the government-to-government meeting that occurred, the minutes from the September 22nd meeting. Do we have any substantive changes that we wish to make from that, those minutes? And I had a summary of the items discussed from the closed session portion of that were meant to be included in this meeting, this month's packet. So those were overlooked, and I will assure that we get those written, that written summary of the closed session in a future agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the 9/22 government-to-government meeting?
I move we accept the minutes from the 22nd meeting.
I'll second that.
First from Wes, second from Grover. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Now we are moving on to council reports and committee assignments. I'm going to go in the order that folks appear on my screen. So, Mr. West, do you have any committee report for us?
We had no HCOG meeting, so I have nothing to report at this time.
All right. Mr. Grover?
Yes, RCA is going well. I'm going to be getting more into some programs for people that convert into solar, and there's some programs where some companies work right along with you, because the battery life's about 10 years on these systems. So that's what they kind of project, and they have the specialized organizations that goes out, especially for residential people, so that things make sense to you, and you know what kind of system you have and what it should be putting out and what you should be using for energy. Just a lot more refined information and data dissemination. So. That's about it for me. And plus I've been reaching out to the UROC too to get more involved with the Redwood Coast Energy Authority. I just had a correspondence with one of them from their council members. If I end up attending a meeting like that, I certainly will report out on that. But that's more about energy independence for Trinidad and the greater Trinidad area. It's a bigger picture type regional scale. So I think that's about it for me. And I want to thank everyone who voted for me. I'm going to do my best this next 2 years to use, the things I learned in school and my own life experience to make good decisions that help Trinidad. And so thank you again for the overwhelming support I received from the city and fellow council members and anybody who supported me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Grover. Mr. Davies.
Yes, the Trinidad Trails Committee met on the 20th of October, and the focus of our conversation was the annual report that will be given to the City Council in January. So we talked about prioritizing trail maintenance and what trails should be prioritized. We had an update on the trails line item budget, see what things are being spent on and how much was left. And we had a brief discussion about signage, that, all signage should be uniform, but it's not the trail committee's purview to come up with a signage plan nor policy. It should be a citywide policy. So that was the extent of our discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Klumpus.
Sure. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Wonderful. So because there's a lot of information, I submitted some report in writing. I want to just briefly go over that with everyone. The Indian Gaming Benefits Committee, as I mentioned last month, has been inactive since 2011. I'm on the committee by Kathy Hayes, clerk of the board in Humboldt County. But until that becomes active, there's nothing really to report. The second committee I was assigned to is the Humboldt Waste Management Authority. When you look into this, however, as I mentioned last month, the city of Trinidad and Fortuna are not members of the authority. So again, nothing to report. What I did look up, and this is a little bit ahead of the game, so to speak, but those in Trinidad that end up getting Christmas trees and want to know whether they can get them disposed of properly, I did reach out to Eureka facility at Hawthorne Street and also Humboldt Sanitation McKinleyville, and they will be accepting Christmas trees after Christmas. Look for information on their website, so you don't have to worry about that. That's not really for another month. The third committee, the California Coastal National Monument Gateway Committee, it's a large committee. I was able to attend the Zoom meeting on October 20th. There's a whole list of folks that are here. What was interesting is they reported on the virtual Trinidad Coastal Land Festival that occurred September 26th. It really was canceled on a face-to-face basis because of COVID, but it was done virtually, and they did a lot of videos. And what's interesting, the videos they posted on Facebook have been viewed by thousands of people. So if you want to see them on kayaking and wildlife, go to the actual website for the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust, and they'll be posted there and you can look at them. The committee has 4 major working groups: interpretation, recreation, ecology, restoration. They're all going to become active. You can look up the Bureau of Land Management strategic plan. I put a website link for you. And the next meeting will be held in January 21st next year at 10 in the morning. Anyone wants to attend. Next is the Humboldt County Visitors Bureau, the Julie Bembo's executive director. They have secured funding from the County of Humboldt to support the website and other outreach to tourists. Their major one is the visitredwoods.com website. What I've done is identify the major festivals and events that occur in Trinidad and then go back to the organizations that support them. So the next couple of weeks, I'll be reaching out to a number of different organizations and getting them connected to Julie Bembo with the Visitors Bureau to see whether or not they want to update the website or update information. And that'll all be covered the expense by the Visitors Bureau. Finally, the most important thing I want to talk about tonight is the Water Committee. This was established back in September 22nd at the council meeting. The members of the committee are Jack West, Eli Naffa, and myself. We've met, I guess, 4 times already. There's a flow meter on Liffenholtz Creek, which is our sole source of water. In early October, it began to decrease again. And right after about October 12th, Eli had to notify the California Department of Fish and Wildlife that it got below a certain level. That's our responsibility, and he carried that out. Within a week of that, the Water Committee put together and completed a communications plan and a 2-page letter that went out to 390 residents in Trinidad and the Liffenholtz Creek watershed. In this letter, it's also on the website, and a link was on the website as well, about trying to conserve water. It was all done as a voluntary idea. My concern about communicating a drought is that once we know we have a drought and we have a plan, then the recommendations of water conservation become mandatory. The difficulty that the committee has is that the Planning Commission has been working on a water shortage contingency plan for a number of months. Trevor Parker has done a lot of heavy lifting to get this completed, and it will be voted out hopefully by the Planning Commission during their next meeting. It will then be able to direct us when mandatory restrictions go into effect. And when they do go into effect, there are city ordinances that have penalties, financial penalties, for those that don't follow it. So currently, we have more of a drought warning than mandatory restrictions, but that may change in the coming months if we don't get rain. Finally, I know that, again, I'll just make this part of my report. We have neighbors, the Rancheria, which are concerned about water, as everyone else is in Trinidad. And to me, the way that we solve these issues is to sit down and simply talk about it. I'd like to have a policy that we have an ability to sit down and just simply talk to one another. So my request is that the city finish and complete the tribal consultation policy for government-to-government meetings. If it's necessary, I'd be happy to come back for a special city council meeting in the next few weeks to get that approved so that we can sit down and talk with our neighbors and try to figure things out. I'm not in a position to say whether the city has water or not. That's not my goal. My goal is to open an avenue of simply communication. If we talk to our neighbors, then ultimately I think we're in a much better place than not talking to them. So attached to this report also is a copy of the drought letter that we sent out. So that's it for me. If there's any questions, please let me know. But you'll be hearing more about water as the days go by. And if the water level gets lower, then we'll have to put out a supplemental drought information to let people know about that as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I was not able to, or did not attend any meetings. There weren't any last month from HTA or from REDEC. But I did want to take a quick moment to recognize a couple of our residents, Mary and Dorothy, who have been doing a pretty extensive job at keeping the city clean. When I came off the freeway the other day, they were cleaning up a lot of the area around the on and off ramps. Certainly, that's the only one of many things that I see them doing. So thank you very much, Mary and Dorothy, for that. I also want to say that I did enjoy handing out pins on Saturday and Sunday, recognizing our 150th anniversary. My wife and I went around, and she has said more than once how she enjoyed a deeper layer of understanding of just the folks that we live around. So we see them walking around, and now we got to talk to more folks. So just wanted to say that. So thank you very much, councilors, for your reports. At this point, we will move on to staff report, starting with our city manager.
I want to think about the pins was good too. I wanted to add that to my report. That was fun.
Okay, so as far as my staff report included in the packet, if anyone has any questions regarding that, I can help answer them. A couple additions. Number one, regarding the cell towers on Trinidad Head. So we originally had Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint. During the summer, Sprint removed their equipment. And then during within the last couple weeks, AT&T has removed their equipment. AT&T is working now off of their new cell tower on Quarry Road. And we've heard some complaints of residents not receiving the same level of reception. So it varies. Some are receiving the same and some are receiving a little bit less. So if you are receiving less than what you had before, please contact the town hall and let us know, because we will report that to AT&T. And the reason I'm saying that is because AT&T has the one tower, and they're planning originally to share the Verizon tower in West Haven. The last word they told me is, no, we're not going to do that. But if the service level is lower than what it was before, we would like, as a city, to push AT&T to co-locate on the West Haven Verizon tower. As far as the West Haven Verizon tower, the update from Verizon is that they are on track for receiving the building permit, and then they can begin construction. So they're hoping that that will be happening within this coming month. The other additional note is regarding my staff report on the Van Wyck temporary water main and stormwater project. So while in construction, it received the their bid was the approved bid. Their timeline is to begin construction next Monday. They are reaching out to get the tribal cultural monitors. So there will be at least one cultural monitor in place. And they had a slight delay in obtaining the proper pipe that they needed. So we didn't know when they would begin, but now we just found out today that they are planning on beginning next Monday. So they are reaching out to the get the cultural monitors in place. If there are any questions regarding the report, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Any questions or comments for Eli? All right, seeing none, we will move on to.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Can you see my name? It's Kimberly Tays.
Yes.
I'm just curious, can Eli answer, are all of the cell carriers off of Trinidad Head, and are the facilities removed, or can he elaborate on that?
Sure. So Sprint has removed their equipment. AT&T has removed their equipment. And they're operating simply off of the Quarry Road site. Verizon has kept their equipment up there, and they're waiting to complete the West Haven tower. So far they have the Quarry Road tower, and they're using the Trinidad Head tower. Once they get the West Haven tower in place, which will be early next year, then they will turn off the Verizon cell tower that's on top of Trinidad Head. In the meantime, we had, after they removed their equipment, the various cell carriers were working through the coastal development permit so that they can remove the anything that's in the ground, such as the poles and the concrete slabs.
Okay, and you said early next year. Can you give me an approximate date?
Well, the approximate date that I was working for originally was to have it done by this November.
That's what I thought.
And unfortunately, they received a lot of delays from the county in trying to get the building permit and get everything else in place. So, the only update I have from them says that they are on track for the December building permit. I'm thinking 2 to 3 months. So it should be hopefully done maybe by sometime in February, in March at the latest, but hopefully February.
Okay, and one more quick question. I thought that they decided a permit was not needed to remove the equipment.
Yeah, the permit is, okay. As far as the equipment, we told them it wasn't necessary, so that's why Sprint and AT&T removed their equipment. Verizon has kept their equipment up there because they're using it. Once West Haven's in place, then they can remove their equipment. In the meantime, all three of them are pursuing the coastal development permit in order to remove the poles and to remove the concrete slabs.
Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll move to items from the floor. So I'll just read this as I do every month. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less. There we go. Thank you, Ms. Provo. Comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or staff. Council and staff responses will be minimal for non-agenda items. So at this point, I would like to open it up to items from the floor. Go ahead, Ms. Thompson.
Anita Thompson. I realize that during last month's city council meeting, the city is aware that visitors are sleeping in their cars or vans overnight in the city of Trinidad. However, I'm not sure if you're aware of the homeless issue too. During the week, my husband and I check our mail at 5 a.m., approximately 5 a.m. On our way to the post office, we continue to see vehicles parked overnight on both Edwards and Main Street. Many times I have not walked into the post office because a homeless person was sleeping in the post office lobby. On one of our early morning walks, my husband and I saw a person sleeping on the ground right behind the school. Today, the post office, I talked to him on the phone. Today, the post office informed me that they are now locking the door and will keep the door closed in order to prevent people from sleeping inside the lobby.
They were supposed to anyway.
Just let me finish, please. The reason they gave me is because they said that because of homeless people sleeping in the lobby. Usually it's open 24/7 due to the pandemic. And because of poor ventilation in the post office. Prior to this, though, it's been open 24/7. And when there is a homeless person sleeping in the lobby, I just turn around and walk out. I don't get my mail. As you're aware, last Thursday evening, our next door neighbor's place was broken into and several expensive items were stolen. The same thief or thieves took our lock and entered our yard. At last month's city council meeting, it was decided that in December next month, the deputies' hours would be renegotiated so that officers would better be able to enforce no camping within the city limits due to a schedule like this where the officer works either late night or early mornings when people are actually sleeping in their cars. This schedule change might also help prevent crime by having an officer patrol during these late night hours. My husband and I love living in Trinidad. This is a dream come true for me. I feel that the issues of overnight parking and crime and homeless people sleeping in public areas are problems we can resolve. I don't feel like they're that bad. Seriously, I don't feel like it's a really bad problem, but I feel it's something we can work together on because we do have a strong community and because the city council, you guys I know you're dedicated. I know you're effective. I know you care. So I feel like we can do something about this before this issue gets out of hand. I don't feel like it's out of hand yet. And I don't want it to get there either because I love this city. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Other items from the floor?
Hi, Steve. This is Steve Madrone.
Go ahead, Mr. Madrone.
Yeah, I was just wondering if Eli could give us an update on the flows in Lupinolds Creek, given that we've all been asked to conserve water. It'd just be good for the community to get an update on the flows. I think last time we talked at the council, it was below 0.86 cubic feet per second. So it'd be nice to know where we're at. And then, thank goodness, it looks like we've got some seriously wetting rains coming this weekend. So we may be coming out of it. Let's hope so. But we'll take what we can get. Thank you.
Yeah, I can respond to that. Richard Klumpus originally had mentioned in his water committee report that he had reached out to Ryan, our public works director, and that Ryan was going to be getting the latest reading for this week. So we don't have this week's reading, but last week's reading was a 0.83. So it is below the 0.86.
Any other questions or items from the floor, rather? Richard, you have a follow-up question?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that I spoke with Public Works today, and there has not been a new reading since November 3rd. So I checked on that right before the meeting to see if we had an update, but it wasn't available. So I'm sorry that I can't present that information.
Other items from the floor? All right, hearing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is requested by any council member, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. A single opportunity for public comment on the consent agenda is available. So at this point, I'm going to ask if there are any councilors who wish to remove any item from the consent agenda and add it to the discussion.
I have a question about one, so I don't know if we need to remove it for that. If we do, I request to remove the, I had it up here, the grant item.
The housing planning grant?
Yeah.
Okay. And where would you, is this end of the agenda, discussion action agenda item, or is it a quick
It's a quick
discussion that you want to have?
It's just it's a question. I would like it placed first, and it would be over with very shortly.
That works for me. Any other questions? Sorry, any other requests for removing consent agenda? No. At this point, any public comment on the remaining consent agenda items? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion then about the consent agenda? Tom, do you want to make that motion just since it's yours?
Sure. I move to accept the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
First, and by Davey, second by Klumpus. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. So we will move then to our first action agenda item, action discussion item, which is from our consent agenda, discussion decision regarding Senate Bill 2 Housing Planning Grant, SHN scope of work. So at this point, Tom, if you could ask your question, and then we have Trevor and Eli on the phone or on the call who might be able to answer.
Yeah, so I'm looking at page 46 of the online version of the packet, and I'm looking under compensation, and I noticed one of the tasks is, it's probably in another page as well. It's in page, it's also found on page 45, task 1, parking study. So we've had a number of discussions about the green striping on the curb on Edward Street. And we've also begun talking about no parking overnight, no camping in car signs. And it's been said that this is all needed to be waiting until a traffic study. Is this the traffic study we're talking about, or is this something completely different?
And I see Becky is also on the call, so if you have something to weigh in on the grant, Becky, please do.
So this isn't a traffic study, but it is a comprehensive parking study that'll look at parking pressure, so percentage of spaces taking up as well as turnover, and we plan on looking at winter and summer times. So the idea behind it is that the Coastal Commission has requested a parking study for the LCP update and also specifically for the ADU or the second unit ordinance. And so this is to meet that Coastal Commission requirement, but it should be a pretty comprehensive parking study that should be useful for a number of things.
Okay, so does this mean that the coastal development permit for the green striping on Edward Street is going to be put off until next November or whenever, October, whenever the study is completed, according to this timeline?
Well, it doesn't have anything specifically to do with that per se.
Okay. All right, I guess that answers my question.
And I have a follow-up question because it's something that I'm interested in as well. I think we all are, is will this, it sounds like this will support the overall interest in the city of addressing traffic and parking and flow and whatnot. But if I'm not mistaken, this is really specifically from the perspective of housing and providing enough housing. Does it also consider just general flow and safety, the width of the streets, all the different things that have come up over the past several years? Or is it really just, can the city of Trinidad accommodate more parking if accessory dwelling units go up and if more affordable housing is created? What's the scope, I guess?
Well, it is parking specific, so it's not going to look at traffic counts or street widths or safety, corners and things like that. It is specific to parking. And yes, one of the things the Coastal Commission wanted when we submitted our first second unit ordinance was information showing that adding housing wasn't going to impact coastal resources, including parking, which affects public access to the coast. And so, but it's not going to be housing specific. It's going to be comprehensive. So it'll be everything in terms of parking, but not necessarily traffic and flow.
So it would really be used as a supplement to the overall traffic study. Not in lieu of, but a supplement to.
Yeah, and I mean, they would be used for different types of things.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions regarding this? I have to go back to the previous page. The housing and planning grant, scope of work. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the scope of work?
Is there any public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Tom. Any public comment on this? All right. Seeing none, bringing it back to the council. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the application for the housing grant.
I'll second that.
All right. First by Davey, second by West. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you for that discussion. Moving on to item listed number 1 on our agenda packet, update presentation from the Greater Trinidad Chamber of Commerce. So I believe Ali is with us this evening. Eli, did you want to introduce anything, or should we turn it right over to Ali?
Yeah, we have both Ali and we have Brett Schuler from the chamber. So I can turn it over. I believe Brett Schuler is going to speak, but I don't know if Ali wants to introduce them. Either way, I'll turn it over.
Hello.
Just on.
Am I being heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Brett Schuler. I'm the president of the chamber. And I'll give a quick update, and then Allie Jones will go into more detail. The chamber is going through what everyone's going through now. We're not having a great year, but we're feeling strong and moving forward. We have 5, maybe 5.5 board members now. We have Tracy Krebs, Chantel Leatherwood, John Lee, Mel Getman, and Martin Sweat. We are looking forward to the next year. We've had to cancel all our events. Luckily, we got the Clam Beach Run in February before the virus, and of course, we canceled the Fish Fest, and we're working on next year. Turns out there won't be a Clam Beach Run in February. We just can't get it together, and we can't. We're still going through the same thing. And I think the same will be said for next year's Fish Festival. However, we're looking at ways to do smaller events in the shoulder seasons, because personally, we didn't need a big crowd coming in. As you know, the summer was very crowded in Trinidad. So we're looking at other things like perhaps, definitely we want to do a crab feed in April sometime, and something else in the fall, and try to make up. We did have a dinner event a month or two ago, and that went very well. We got to have distancing art show that people came through. The artists were happy to finally get to show some of their works, and we're gonna work on events like that. We're starting over again, smaller events, kind of like the Fish Fest started many years ago and got out of hand a little bit. So that's where we're looking, and in that tone, what we're doing. Of course, we're always looking for new chamber members. We're actually inviting people to join the board if they're interested. We can use more energy. And we're also putting together a festival committee, and which we would like community members to join us in working out these type of events. And we'll take artists, fishermen, and just people interested in what's going on in the town. So that's kind of what we're thinking about there. The chamber is still alive. We decided we could make it through the year and well into next year, but we do need some events to bring in a little more capital and help our financial situation. We have a certain amount of payments a month that we have to meet, and right now we're okay, but we have to start thinking about it. And that's pretty much the state of the chamber right now. And I'd like to turn it over to Allie and let her fill you in on more detail.
Thanks, Brett. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allie Jones, and I've been the director of the Trinidad Chamber for 2.5 years now. That's, 2.5 years. So I wanted to share a quick presentation. I've never used this WebEx before, so I'm hoping that it's similar enough to Zoom. All right, so can you guys see my PowerPoint presentation?
I can.
Awesome. Okay. I just wanted to give a quick overview, and Brett did a lot of kind of the broad strokes. I wanted to share some details about what the chamber is doing. And really, in the midst of a pandemic, you get back to the core of why your organization exists. And really, our mission has been for a long time to just really promote well-being in Trinidad, both with our community and encouraging cooperation and partnerships between the business and the community. And so that is definitely something that is needed more than ever in 2020, which has been very much an unprecedented year. And so while what things look like this year are different, the mission and the heart of the chamber is really, I believe, stronger than ever. And when you boil it down, our critical actions that we're doing on a month-to-month and day-to-day basis is connecting, promoting, and supporting. So I wanted to give a broad overview of what that looks like and sharing this with the City Council to see the chamber as a partner, as someone who can collaborate with the goals of the city and help carry that out, we want to continue to do that as we move forward as a community. So one of the main things we do is we connect, and we offer that in the community through events and through communication. So these are, the top left is, as Brett mentioned, the last two events that we were able to host in 2020 before COVID and social distancing was in our vocabulary. And those things are time-honored traditions in our community and opportunities for both residents of Trinidad, the greater Humboldt area, and in certain cases, like the Trinidad to Clam Beach Run, people from all over the country come to enjoy the best of Trinidad. And we were able to do that. But in March, obviously, we really needed to shift gears really quickly. So a large part of what we did, and as connecting, was through communication. And I used to write monthly updates to just our chamber network. And once COVID hit and the need for updates as things were changing on a day-to-day basis, we really ramped that up and sent for a couple weeks daily email updates of not only what's happening and how to stay safe in our community, how to get access to meals for those who are needing to really quarantine, and then as things started to open back up, how to best support our local businesses in safe ways. And so that communication is ongoing, but I think something that was really hopefully a beacon in our community to just be informed and feel like they knew how to help in the moment. And, you know, as things carried on this fall, we were not able to host our typical events like Taste in Trinidad and Saunders Park, with, you know, lots of people schmoozing and enjoying treats. Those days are maybe over for a little while, but we were able to pivot and offer a really great way for just the community to connect with our artists in the area of Trinidad, as well as to enjoy some food in a picnic form. And that went over really well. So I see the chamber as looking for ways, no matter what the circumstances, to connect with our community. The second is to promote our area, and really what we look at as the chamber is to find creative and sustainable ways to promote our tourism-based businesses, specifically through shoulder season. And so, again, before COVID in February, I got to partner with Julie Benbow from the Visitors Bureau to go to Denver to an international travel show and just showcase all the wonderful things about Trinidad. And then little did we know a month later that our direct flight to Denver was no more. But I think that the position I have is in the community is not only just as the chamber director, but I'm also a marketing consultant, and I have lots of clients throughout the community. So looking for partnerships to promote Trinidad in creative and collaborative ways is something that I hope to continue to do moving forward. Another big win for us as a chamber this year is that we totally redid our website to not only be more mobile friendly and tourism centered, but to really showcase our members and really drive traffic to our businesses. And again, this looks a little different right now in promoting more and reaching out to our local community to support our local businesses in safe ways and socially distant ways. But as we move out of the socially distant reality we're in now, I really believe that the website I have built for the chamber will be an asset and something we can leverage to help our businesses flourish. And in line with that, just it's a really hard time to be a business member right now. and our Greater Trinidad Chamber business members and throughout Humboldt County are really the backbone of what makes our community great. And so I'm a part of a coalition of chambers throughout the county and city and Main Street organizations that are doing a concerted marketing effort to have people really think about their shopping power and how to support local businesses, especially in the holiday season. And so through social media and radio PSAs and TV over the next few months, I hope you'll see and know that that is me, along with a lot of other people in the community, really trying to advocate for our local businesses. And that's something that we do as the chamber on a daily basis. And then the third one is just support, supporting our community and supporting those who are coming through our town. And again, this looked differently this year, and that's okay. One of the main things I did was to look for ways to provide as much support to help our community be safe and feel safe. Being a tourism-centered town, we couldn't block off people coming through town. And for the most part, what I heard is that a lot of people were very respectful, and then there were a vocal minority who maybe weren't, as far as our county's regulations in line with the CDC. But what we could do is offer signage and provide our businesses with free hand sanitizer, PPE. This is a photo on the left of a bunch of solution of bleach and water that I put together and then distributed. We did one round just to our Trinidad Chamber members, and then we got another grant through AEDC to be able to offer that to any businesses in our area. And I think we will be actively looking for that in an ongoing way, because that's a big burden on top of trying to stay open, to also be having all these other supplies needed in order to just be safe for employees and community members and patrons of those stores. So I think just to sort of end this, I think right now as a chamber, we have a lot of opportunities. We also have some challenges, and I'm sharing this with the City Council, an invitation to partner with us. I think that right now people are leaning into community and more open to those conversations, to work together and to make sure we get through this in as best a way possible. And so I see the chamber as being a really big partner in that communication and collaboration. I think that we have the opportunity to really advocate and provide support for safe and healthy operation of our businesses in ways that are really in line with our county and state regulations as we move through this. And just, I think the other opportunity, and Brett briefly mentioned that, is while we cannot have huge crowds of people coming into Trinidad, maybe this is our way to get back to our roots that we've maybe been wanting to do anyway, and offering smaller, more community-oriented events. Someday we hope to host Trinidad to Clam Beach Run again, because it's a really great community event. But in the meantime, can we offer other opportunities for our community to come together? But on the other side of that, we are an organization that primarily was funded through those big events. So we have to be creative in finding ways to be sustainable, because we're definitely operating at a deficit without the support of our community and our membership. We will need to find new ways to be able to just operate our budget. We have a challenge in needing to get engagement, both as a membership in the community as well as members to serve on our board. And that's coming together. It's better than it was maybe a year ago. But we would like and welcome more collaboration and partnership with just community members who are interested in line with our mission. And I think another thing is just a broader conversation we all need to be having and participating in is how to make Trinidad a welcoming and safe place for both tourists and our community. And it's a complicated conversation with lots of layers, but specifically just with in terms of equity, and being a welcoming and hospitable community for people who want to enjoy the beauty of our small town, but also doing that in a way that is safe and sustainable for the people who call Trinidad home. It's not an easy answer, but I think it's one that we need to continue to just consider and work together and have those conversations. And I know that on behalf of the board members of the Trinidad Chamber and myself, we are all really passionate about wanting to help make that happen. So just in conclusion, our invitations and our ask is just to proactively look for opportunities to partner and collaborate with us. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And specifically, if you would be interested or know someone who would be a great leader in our community to join our board, or volunteer for what Fish Fest will look like this year if it ends up happening in a smaller capacity and wants to shape that, we'd really enjoy that active participation. So that is it. I'm not sure if there's comments or questions, but happy to stay on for a few extra minutes for that.
Thank you very much, Brett and Allie. Any questions or comments for Brett or Allie? Jack.
I just want to compliment Allie and Brett on the emails and information that came out regularly to us, because it had a lot of good information, kept us updated on a regular basis. I know that had to be quite a bit of work. So I know that came out of Allie's work, and I appreciate that. So I really hope you can get us on board so we can work together. And thank you very much for a great presentation tonight.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank you for the presentation as well. That's really good. You're very, the community-oriented approach to our future, and to be responsible and inclusive in all the moves and decisions we make together, so that we don't have to go backwards, and we can enjoy the time that we do, and all the different people from diverse backgrounds can get together and enjoy the differences in one another. Different communities. So thanks again for that presentation.
Yes, the efforts on the shoulder seasons is I think is a really smart move, and I also really want to echo your call for folks to weigh in with ideas. We have a limited amount of space, and a lot of people have discovered Trinidad, and we really want to be smart about that. So I really want to commend you for just saying it, just naming it, and also to echo your call for folks to. I always say there's some really smart people in the room, and we've got some ideas that we can come up with. So hopefully people will take you up on that and join those conversations. But other comments or questions from the residents or from the council? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your time, Allie and Brett, and for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, and we will now move on to item number 2, discussion decision regarding alleged Brown Act violation letter sent by the Trinidad Rancheria. I believe our attorney and our city manager will lead this discussion, so I'll turn it over to Eli.
Okay, we do have our city attorney, Russ Gans, on the line. So I will turn it over to him, and he can explain what we have on this agenda item.
Yeah, so hopefully the council can hear me okay. I believe included in the council's packet is both the correspondence from the attorney that submitted the cure and correct request and notification to the council, as well as the proposed response to the attorney's letter. In short, under the Brown Act, where there's an alleged violation of the open meeting requirements applicable to council meetings and consideration of any item prior to executive session is the issue here, of course. There's a cure and correct protocol or procedure established by the Brown Act. And so, in essence, the draft letter we've prepared to and submitted to the council is an acknowledgement about the concern about any executive session that occurred on September 22nd, 2020, an assurance that no such executive session will be initiated in the future absent strict compliance with the Brown Act, and also a further assurance to the inquiring and to the attorney's correspondence that no action was actually taken when you were in this executive session on September 22nd, 2020. So again, it's an affirmative response to the letter compliant with the Brown Act. The language is actually taken directly from the statute in terms of the representations from the council. So unless there are any questions, we would recommend that course of action that your council approve and authorize the mayor to issue that corrective action notice letter as proposed.
And Mr. Gans, is there any reason that we would limit this letter from the mayor, or it seems that, and I'm certainly having no problem with that, but it seems like this is a council action. Should the letter response come from the council as a whole, or is it more customary for just the mayor to respond in such a situation?
Certainly it could. The full council could actually author and sign the letter. As a matter of convenience, typically we designate one council member to sign the letter so that we secure one signature. But of course, any action taken tonight, this is a public action item, so we're seeking collective council consent to authorize the mayor to issue the letter. So it will be a uniform action by the council.
Thank you for that clarification. Any questions for Russ from the council at this point? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up to public comment and or questions regarding this discussion action item. All right, seeing none, I don't see any raised hands. All right. Then let's bring it back to the council for our reaction, our plan of action. I'm in support of submitting the letter as stated, but would very much appreciate a full council to weigh in on that and to support that. So I open it up for council discussion.
I also support it. I think it's something that we do have to always be considerate of as we move forward on anything like that. So it seems like it'll work the way it's written to me. So.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, I support the letter. I'm also supportive of this council completing a government-to-government communication policy. If we had that policy in place, I think we could have prevented the need for this response. It's just if people's heads may be in the right place, but communications have to be done in a very specific way so that all parties involved feel as if they're inclusive and information is available. So I'm fully supportive of this, but this is a correction. I think if we have a policy and we can get that implemented quickly, it'll give us a roadmap, a guide of how to proceed moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. West?
I agree. I thank Russ for putting this together so quickly, and I agree with it completely. So yes, let's do it.
Mr. Davies?
So yeah, it seems to be a necessary letter to submit, and I agree with Richard. We need to wrap up this government to government policy. This has been dragging on for a very long time. It's what got, in my opinion, it's what got us into this situation. It feels like we had a really good start on this policy when Russ first came on as our city attorney. So I appreciate that. And we just need the momentum to continue forward. And aligning with that, I think even when we have the policy in place, it's very important to discuss what we're actually going into and being asked to do. I mean, this was part of our conversation last time, and I'm not an attorney, but I've been trying to, bring myself up to speed on this, and the things that we talk about are pretty straightforward, and there's not a whole lot of room for interpretation, in my opinion. And so things have happened, things have been brought out with other meetings that weren't a full quorum. Things may have been discussed in the past that were not what we, fall under the legislation. And we just need to get this together and figure out a way that we can have this communication and not be questioned every single time by myself or public or other members of the council. It's a necessary thing to wrap up. So thank you.
All right, I'm in full agreement as well, and look forward to meeting, and certainly if we need to meet a second time this month to work on that government-to-government communications policy, we certainly can. But we have an agenda item before us that needs a motion. Anyone have a motion ready to make? Go ahead, Richard. You're on mute, Richard.
Mute.
Sorry about that. I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the cure and correction of past actions of the Trinidad City Council.
I'll second it.
We have a first by Mr. Klomp, a second by Mr. Grover. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much for the discussion. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Gans, and well-prepared document. And this is a positive step to keep the council on point and to keep the council aware of the parameters under which we need to work. So thank you very much for the discussion. And we will move on to number 3, discussion decision regarding appeal of coastal development permit 2020-1, Planning Commission approval to temporarily close the Van Wyck Trail. I believe we can open this up to Trevor, our city planner, for a pre-discussion.
Good evening, thank you. So this project has a bit of a history, going back actually more than a year, and I think Eli will probably have some things to add in terms of the details of his discussions with Parsac staff. But Parsac is the city's insurance company, and they wrote a risk report that recommended closure of the Van Wyck Trail. A representative came to the city and walked several sites of concern with Eli, and recommended signage for a couple of other troublesome spots, like the base of the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail, but requested that the Van Wyck Trail be posted as closed due to safety considerations and a concern that the city would be liable and the insurance wouldn't cover a claim should someone hurt themselves. So the city staff did post the trail as closed based on Parsac's request and recommendation. Over the next few months, the city was informed by Coastal Commission staff that even temporary trail closure, it's constitutes a development under the Coastal Act. It's a change in the intensity of use, and so requires a coastal development permit. And so we're processing this after the fact, coastal development permit for the closure that's been ongoing, as well as to continue the closure in order for the city to, while it's looking for repair options for the Van Wyck Trail. I have been in contact with Coastal Commission staff over this issue, and my staff report with the Planning Commission goes over some of the Coastal Act provisions and some of the history and consistency with the LCP. So staff feels that the project is consistent with those requirements. Several things have been brought up by the public concerns. Why this trail closed and not some of the others. There's not all the other trails that are in bad shape that have been used as examples are under city ownership or control. And Parsac didn't request any of the other trails that the city owns to be closed. So it really is based on that Parsac request and recommendation. There might be more options to explore for some sort of temporary repair that could keep the trail open safely. We could certainly do that, but even in talking with Coastal Commission staff, we didn't see that a temporary repair could be considered exempt because it's located on a bluff. Most activities within a certain distance from a bluff are not exempt. It's also, there's some environmentally sensitive habitat near there. So, but there, like I said, there might be some other options to explore, but even in that meantime, that takes time. And so staff is still recommending that the trail be closed in the meantime. Edward Street is, yes, it's a different experience, but it does get you to and from the same location. The city did do some improvements on Edward Street by removing the parking on the south side and adding striping to make that wide shoulder for pedestrian use on the south side of the street. And that was to improve pedestrian safety. So, it does provide an alternative access. In terms of tonight's decision, so the Planning Commission did consider this issue at a couple of meetings. It was continued, and then the Planning Commission did approve the trail closure, and then that decision has been appealed. So that's what's before you is the appeal of the Planning Commission decision. I did point out a couple of potential conflicts of interest with the council. So there's under the Fair Political Practices Act, if an official has interest in, I think it's $2,000 is the cutoff, interest in real property within 300 feet of a project, there's a presumed financial conflict of interest. However, that presumption can be rebutted, but it's really, from my understanding, it's 1 cent, one way or the other. So, Commissioner Klompus does own property within 300 feet of the closure, and so he needs to consider whether he thinks he's got financial conflict of interest. He can rebut that. If not, he should recuse himself. And then in addition, Commissioner Grover does live just adjacent to the trail closure. Because he's a renter, I don't think that the presumption of a financial conflict exists. However, under the city's ethics code, officials are supposed to avoid the appearance of any kind of conflict. And one of the concerns that has been brought up is that the trail closure is occurring because the neighbors have requested it. And I just want to assure the council that that is not the case. This is being done based on the request of the city's insurance company, not the adjacent public. The city is at this point still committed to exploring repair options for the trail, whatever form that might take. This temporary closure is not going to just lead into a permanent closure. A permanent closure, this trail is identified in the city's general plan and the local coastal program. So in order to close the trail, the city would actually have to do an LCP amendment first, and that would have to be approved by the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the Coastal Commission. And then the city could process a coastal development permit to close the trail. And that's where there would be a little bit more rigorous alternatives analysis, for example, and some other studies that would be needed in order to permanently close the trail. A temporary closure doesn't really have the same requirements for that kind of rigorous documentation. So staff is still recommending approval of the closure, which would be a denial of the appeal, and upholding the Planning Commission decision. The Planning Commission only approved an additional 6 months of closure, and it's going to be difficult to make any progress in 6 months. So staff would recommend that be for a year, so the council can modify the Planning Commission's decision. Alternatively, if you feel that any of the findings can't be made for closing the trail, for example, then you could uphold the appeal and reverse the Planning Commission's decision, and then the closure would not occur. So, and there is a sample motion there on the second page of the agenda report, and then there's a variety of background materials in there, including minutes and the previous staff report and public comments as well. So I'm happy to take any questions, or if Eli has anything to add to that.
Anything to add, Eli?
No, I thought Trevor did a very good job. And as was noted, the reason that we initially took to close the trail, and then, of course, the Planning Commission then took that other action subsequently, was simply because Parsac, which is our insurance provider, said that the trail was unsafe. They provided us with a report that is included in the agenda packet. And in that report, they had said that the trail should be closed, so that when their executive director visited the city of Trinidad in 2019, after we talked in the office, he said, I want to take you to 2 sites and show you what needs to be done. And based upon the recommendation from that report, he took me directly. The first site was the Van Wyck Trail, and said that the trail needed to be closed, and that there should be a sign saying trail closed with either a chain or a rope across each side. And then we went to the Axel Lindgren Trail, and at that point he said that a sign needed to be put that was a warning for that particular trail. And he sent us the language, and we followed through. So our actions initially were all taken based upon the insurance company, because we do not want to expose the city to liability, which could be in the millions of dollars, and we can't afford that. So I'll help entertain any questions between myself and Trevor.
Thank you for that. And also, just real quick, to recognize the incredibly thorough inclusion of information in the packet. So I think we really, with the minutes and the letters and whatnot, the council or the Planning Commission action. So definitely want to recognize. I thought I saw a hand, Mr. Klumpus.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Good, thank you. So what is the penalty for an individual that walks around the chain and just goes on the trail and goes off the other side and keeps walking? What I see people walk the trail, because I live down the street, I'm just curious, is there some fine? Is it just you take your own responsibility if you fall over the edge and go down the hill? I just don't know what the answer is. I hope someone can help. Thank you.
Well, does someone else have a question? Do you want me to help answer that?
Oh, I was gonna kind of make a comment on that too. Yeah, I see the same thing, but a lot of times I see it and it's dark out, so nobody's reading a sign anyways. And like when the dog goes out there and stuff. So I don't know. I know that you can put "don't go at your own risk," but if somebody gets hurt, they're still gonna say I didn't see the sign or something. It's not a chance that I'm willing to take, but I do have alternative ideas, but I'd like to hear public comment before I add more.
Eli, can you respond just real quick to Richard's inquiry?
Yes. So I'll respond to Richard's comment. By having a sign that says trail closed and by having a rope or chain across the trail on both sides, that makes it clear that the city is saying that the trail is closed. So if someone violates that, they're doing that on their own. We can't be there 24/7, making sure that people are not using the trail. On the other hand, the insurance company asked us to remove the sign that we had there previously. The previous sign was basically use at your own risk. And that's the type of sign that we have for the Axel Lindgren Trail. But the insurance company told us that the trail, because of its condition, needed to be closed, and we could not have a sign, use at your own risk, because that was inviting people to go ahead and use it if they so chose. So simply by having a sign saying that the trail is closed means that the city position is that the trail is closed and therefore should not be used, period.
Tom, you had your hand up.
I'll let Richard, because he was answering his question, and then I'll go after.
Thank you. Okay. As a follow-up, does that mean, Eli, that it would be trail closed, no trespassing? That, in other words, if the trail's closed and you walk it anyway, it doesn't seem to be a problem. If you were to put no trespassing, does that up the illegality, so to speak, of walking the trail?
Well, that's a question that I could pose to our city attorney and also to the insurance company. I'm not sure, what different layer that would create.
Tom?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions and one statement. So I would like to tell you that I have spoken to the appellant. She contacted me with some concerns about the length of time that it has taken to apply for the CDP, the manner in which that she was not really responded to say that her appeal had been received. She had to remind people that the appeal had been received. I knew it was submitted far before it was ever made public that the appeal was submitted, or to the rest of the council, I think. So I wanted to put that out there, that I have spoken with her about these timelines. I did have a couple questions. I would like to know if the PARSAC representative walked to the bottom of the Axel Lindgren Trail as part of their tour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we walked the Axel Lindgren Trail. Yes, we did. And like I said, it's the executive director of PARSAC, and we walked, the Axel Lindgren Trail, and as a result, pointed out, the fact that, and also the report that was done, which is included in the packet, had studied all of the potential hazards throughout the city. So they had looked at the whole trail itself and coming to the conclusion that that one just needed a warning so that people were aware that there were uneven surfaces which would be potential hazards.
So they were okay with the need that you'd have to climb down using 4 points to get down to the beach at the toe of the Axel Lindgren Trail, and considered that less of a risk than the Van Wyck Trail, it sounds like.
Okay, so that's a question that I'm not so sure. And the reason I'm saying that is because someone could actually, I would think that, you know, most people would do what I did, and what we did that day is that we walked down as far as we can. We looked at the view and everything, but we didn't try to maneuver ourselves down to the beach. So that's the part that I think is basically travel at your own risk. So implying that, you know, you can get the full experience by not actually going that last few steps and then just taking it in there and then coming back up. Versus the other trail, the Van Wyck Trail, when you're going from one side to the other side, that's where the problem occurs. And that's part of the reason why we were suggesting, as part of the Van Wyck connectivity project, that we create vista points on either side of the trail so that people can basically take in and observe from either side without actually physically going across the middle.
Okay, I'm going to have more comments later, but I'm just trying to clarify some questions. Have we resolved the question about recusal on this item? There was recommendation, and I haven't heard if anyone's going to recuse or not recuse. I'm just curious.
Richard, do you want to weigh in on the question posed?
Yeah, I live down the end of the block.
That's enough.
I'm not sure.
Do you feel that you have a financial interest or conflict with the decision made tonight?
Yes.
Oh, not at all.
Oh, come on.
On the trail, certainly.
Mr. Grover, do you have any comments regarding the comments that Trevor made regarding your proximity to the trail and the decision made tonight?
No, I wanted to fix the trail, or I don't mind if it gives given back to the tribe and nothing happens to it. So either way, whatever is the best.
Do you feel that you have any conflict of interest living within 300 feet of the trail?
No.
All
Okay.
right, thanks. I had...
Mayor to weigh in on that?
Not at this point. We're on council comments, and then I'm definitely going to open it up to the public.
I'd like to open it up to the attorney.
I had one other question about trail immunity. There is a state statute that gives cities and local governments trail immunity and things happen on trails. And so I don't feel like that was fully explored. Just going on the recommendation of the insurance company. That sign that they told you to take down was the same sign that the same insurance company advised the city to put up in previous years. So I don't have any more questions. I'll reserve comments for after public comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jack, did you have any questions or comments at this point?
I just have, I'm going to go back to the concerns of having, just my feelings about Dave and Richard being part of this. One thing, Richard, David is a renter. I don't see why that would be a problem. But Richard, I really have to think about your connection to this trail. So I think that's an important item to consider before we go on. And, you know, I appreciate what you do, but this may put you in a bad spot being so close to it. And I'm not quite sure of exactly your location, but I really think that's something to consider.
Richard, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, living all the way down the end of the block, about 5 houses or 6 houses away, why that would have a conflict of interest. I don't own the trail. I have no financial interest. I live down the street. I don't live close to the trail. So if someone can help explain why it's a conflict of interest, I'd be happy to make a decision. I'm just trying to visualize, again, living down the end of the street on the corner away from it would create a conflict of interest. So if you're more than happy to make a decision.
Let's let the lawyer talk to him.
Trevor, would you mind weighing in? Our attorney is no longer on the call. Would you mind weighing in since you brought up
we need to talk to the lawyer. She's not a lawyer.
I'm not an attorney, but we have gone through this issue a number of times in Trinidad because it is such a small town. Often people live close. So the question is basically, would it affect Richard's property values?
Yes, it would.
And so, you could think, well, if you close the trail and less people are walking by, maybe that would make his property more desirable. Just like, a development project that fixes up a house that might be an eyesore might improve neighborhood property values. But on the other hand, where he is a fully developed street.
No.
There's a bench and a vista point there. So whether the trail is open or closed, there will be people walking there anyway. So, I don't think
need a lawyer.
That it's a decision for Richard to make under the FPPC. I don't see a real strong
need the lawyer.
Financial impact one way or the other, but it, the bar is low. So I don't know.
Okay, Mr. West.
I'll just add that Richard, I guess you don't border the trail at all then, do you?
Yes, he does.
So then I can see why he would not have to recuse himself.
So if I may, since we don't have our attorney with us, I just want to remind folks of the process. So the Fair Political Practices Commission does establish the rules for recusal and does review formal complaints if a council member or any elected official chooses not to recuse. And so I do ask that since we don't have the FPPC or our lawyer on this, that we proceed. If Richard decides to stay in or David decide to stay in this discussion and vote, then we have the Fair Political Practices Commission to weigh in should it go to that level. So I do ask that folks consider that. I'm not making a recommendation one way or the other, just to outline the process. I would like to open it up to the public at this point to weigh in on, again, just the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval to temporarily close the Van Wyck Trail.
As the appellant, do I get allotted some time? In the past, we've been given more time than the general public.
Yes.
I have.
Ms. Tays, I was going to say, as the appellant, you certainly can have more than the general or the customary 3 minutes time.
Okay, I would like, I think I can make my comments in less than 10 minutes, but because of Trevor's report, I have numerous comments and questions in addition, because we are not just hearing the appeal that was put before the Planning Commission. There have been changes, adding a time period to the length of the closure, in addition to other comments that were made by Trevor, and I did not have a chance to comment on earlier.
You have the floor, Ms. Tays, and certainly, be mindful of time, but also make sure that you have the time you need to express your thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening, Council. First of all, in the spirit of the cure and correct letter that Mr. Gans was just speaking to, I would highly recommend that Mr. Klompus and Mr. Grover recuse themselves. From my perception and from the emails that I received in a public records request, I believe Mr. Grover in particular, who is asking for the trail to be closed, and also Mr. Klompus, who is living along the trail, who absolutely have a financial interest, because that trail could essentially be closed off to the public and become privatized in some fashion. I think you could look at it. It's unbelievable to me that you wouldn't consider recusing yourself. I can't believe that you would think that that was okay. And I think that it's really unfortunate that Mr. Gans is not here, because I think he is an excellent attorney, and I think he could weigh in and tell you that there would be deep concerns about you living so close to the trail, and the trail could essentially be closed and privatize the trail, that you would still be able to vote on this issue. So I'm pretty astounded that you would think that was okay. Also, when Trevor mentioned about the improvements to Edward Street, I just want to point out that the improvements that were made were striping improvements. Actually, the improvements that were made make it look more like a highway. It looks like Highway 101. It's wide, it's straight, and it just says speed, because I'm a big, wide, highway-looking street. There are no barriers along Edward Street. There's no sidewalk. There's nothing to separate pedestrians from Edward Street. So this in itself is astounding to me. The city would not think that Edwards, putting people on Edwards would not expose the city to a liability just as putting people on the Van Wyck Trail. So I see that the improvements that Trevor mentions are not substantive, and I don't think that that is going to protect the pedestrians. Also, Trevor mentioned that the other trails are not in the city limits. That's absolutely not true. Parker Creek Trail and the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail, and also State Park. Yes?
Kim, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we've had a power failure.
Okay.
I don't know how many. I lost my computer, so I don't know if anybody's still on the call.
Okay. It looks like
We lost power here.
Your generator on manual?
Yeah, I know. We had a power outage here, but I didn't lose anything.
It looks like we lost.
Do we have a quorum?
Looks like we lost Tom and
David, maybe?
and Steve.
Okay, so Steve. Okay, now it's back on. Steve is on the phone, but not on the computer.
The lighthouse is back on too.
Okay, sorry, it came back on, so I'm going to try to log back into the meeting.
Back on. I'm listening to them.
I just didn't want us
This is
to lose
probably
the
related to the. This is probably related to the PG&E substation switch over to generators like the other morning. Probably, because it was so quick, off and on.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Taves. Please continue.
Okay. I don't know where everybody lost me, but anyway. I got all sorts of weird noises coming through the screen.
Okay, well, they're discussing that on
Hello?
right now. Some people are on and some people aren't. So
Yeah, I'm not able to rejoin the meeting, but I can listen. So
You can hear me?
we just have to have a quorum of at least 3 counselors participating. So I can't tell if we do or not.
I know I can't either. Well,
Okay.
I can see on the screen who's attending, but it
Is,
looks like
is David on?
I see. I do not see David. I see Jack West. I don't see Tom Davies, and I see Richard Klompus and Jack West are the only ones.
Is Tom around? Can we hear Tom? Or can we hear David?
And I do not see Tom, and I do not see.
Yeah, we lost our internet, Kim. I believe we lost our internet.
Okay.
Let's give them a minute to come on again. They may come back.
Yeah, well, let's see if we can get this restored. So please hang tight. We will see what we can do if we can get our network back up and running.
Okay. I figured things like this happen, so I'm not worried.
Well, in the old days, we would light a candle, and now we're dead in the water without the internet. So
Right.
hang tight.
Well, if we're in person, we wouldn't have to worry at all.
That's what I'm saying. We'd light a candle, and
Right.
everything would be fine.
Right. Yeah, I don't see Tom, and I don't see.
that was Kathleen. She said their power just came back.
Okay, the power just came back on. And so, Steve, you're still there? Steve Ladwig? Nope.
Yay.
Good, Tom's back.
Yep.
I'm back.
All right, I am back as well. So I think we can read, let's see, Jack, Richard, Tom, where's Dave?
Good time for the Tesla backup.
So let's see what.
Steve, I put some information in the chat about PG&E and the power.
Yeah,
This is
I
Steve
see
again.
that. Thank you for doing that. So you said Monday through Wednesday. All right.
Yeah, maybe it got done one day early.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's only out for a minute, but boy, it sure disrupted everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we
right,
need notification
we
in
do have a
advance.
forum at this point, and has anyone heard from Mr. Grover by text or anything? Is he trying to get back on? Kim, if you don't mind waiting just a minute, I want to see if we can get David back on.
Public.
That's fine. And what about public members? Did we lose them too?
No, we still have 28 people enrolled or participating in the meeting. All right, we have everybody back. Let's just resume, Ms. Tays, with your comments, and I imagine Mr. Grover will join us as soon as he can.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
That when we were discussing Parsac and their visit and the fact that the Axel Lindgren, that the other trails were outside of the city limits, that is not a true statement, because the Axel Lindgren Trail, the Parker Creek Trail, and state parks trails that are within city limits were all shown by Gale County to have hazardous conditions. I don't see that the Van Wyck Trail is, although it's got problems, definitely, I don't see it being any worse than the other trails. And so those photos, I hope you all had a chance to look at those that Kenny sent. She sent those in August. Then the discussion about closing the trail for 6 months versus a year and saying that the trail would not be closed permanently. The problem is what's been happening is that the trail was closed for a year without a permit. Then it was closed. Now it's been going to supposedly close for 6 months. Now it's being asked to be closed for a year, in addition to the 3 months that I had to wait for the appeal to be heard. So when you have these multiple extensions, it starts to look like the intention is to close the trail permanently because of these multiple year closures. So those are my comments in regards to Trevor's presentation. Then I have my own comments that I would like to just read, and it should be about 5 to 6, 7 minutes. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Okay,
Yep.
so again, I'm Kimberly Tays. I'm the appellant in this case. My August 16th and August 25 letters to the Planning Commission and City Council, respectively, have thoroughly addressed my concerns about the closure of the Van Wyck Trail, but tonight I will reiterate my main concerns. First off, as I've mentioned before, it is upsetting to me that staff is amending the Planning Commission's vote to close the Van Wyck Trail for 6 months and asking the City Council to extend the trail closure to 1 year. That's double the time that it was approved by the commissioners. I wonder if this is a new tactic where staff decides they do not like a decision by the city's governing body and recommends a new timeline to their liking. Shouldn't the coastal development permit go back to the Planning Commission if their vote to close the trail for 6 months is being extended to 1 year? What is the point of having a Planning Commission if their legal decisions are being changed at the whims of staff? I suspect these delay tactics are being used to close the trail permanently. Closing the Van Wyck Trail violates the Coastal Act because it cuts off safe pedestrian access to the harbor, beaches, Trinidad Head, etc. No matter how you slice and dice it, Edwards is not a suitable alternative to the Van Wyck Trail. The planner says Edwards is safer than the trail, but no traffic studies have been done to prove that claim. To show the true risks of putting people onto Edwards, meaningful traffic studies need to be done, especially during the busy tourist season, crab season, weekends, and holidays, with the influx of recreational and commercial vehicles, SUVs, and trucks is the greatest. I sent some pictures to Gabe, and he said if I asked the mayor that they could please put those pictures up just to show what it is the public would be contending with. It's just a quick example of 3 photos. It wasn't anything extensive. I don't know if Gabe can put those up.
How did you send those photos?
I sent him via email.
Okay.
And he said if I asked you, then he could have them put up on the screen, he thought.
Yeah, I'm just
Oh, right, to share the screen.
checking with Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Is that okay? Okay, good.
Yep.
Oops. I was laying on my side. Okay, and then there's 2 other photos too, if maybe we could just scroll through those. So, and this was just within like a few seconds time yesterday when the RV came down and then these 2 vehicles followed right after. And then there's another picture of an RV just within seconds going up the hill. And there's that one. So this was from yesterday's walk on Edwards. This was a Monday in November. I think we all know, living in Trinidad, that's typically the quiet season. And the traffic was awful. The exhaust fumes from this particular buggy and the noise from the diesel trucks were unpleasant, and I felt vulnerable sharing the road with these oversized vehicles. And I was on the ramp here, but this is just where I was taking pictures as I continued to walk up Edwards Street. So I walked down Van Wyck, so you'll have to arrest me, and then I walked back up Edwards. So I also did walk, as I said, Van Wyck yesterday. I could easily navigate the slumped areas with care. I'm 61 and I'm not in excellent shape, but average shape, and it was fine for me to go down it. I do not want to trade a scenic, quiet trail with unobstructed views of the harbor, ocean, coastline, and marine life for the Edwards Street experience. While the planner says there have been no incidents on Edwards, I'm unaware of any incidents on the Van Wyck Trail either. Public safety is being used as an excuse to close the trail, and I suspect this is being done to appease the wishes of property owners and residents who want the trail closed for their own benefit. This is where we get into the conflict of interest. Whether you're a tenant or a homeowner, it still benefits you. So imagine how this looks, how this would enhance property values. If sellers could inform buyers that their homes overlook a private bluff closed off from the public. A review of public records between the city manager and Councilmember Grover heightens the suspicion because less than 4 months after Mr. Grover expressed an urgent need to close the trail and prohibit its use, even offering to work himself, a permit was brought forward to close the trail for 3 years without any plans to repair or move the trail or any timeline for its reopening. Even as a tenant, Mr. Grover would benefit from this trail closure because he would not have to share his views and trail access with the public. Gail Kinney, again, as I mentioned, submitted some excellent photos to the City Council and the Planning Commission, and it showed the dangerous condition of those other trails. And so theoretically, I believe that the other trails should be closed too. If you're going to say that that the Van Wyck's being closed for liability and dangerous conditions, it seems that those other trails would be also a safety issue. If the city had a definitive, reasonable timeline for repairing and reopening the trail, I would not object to a temporary closure. But that's not the case. The Van Wyck Trail has been closed for over a year, and in that time, no alternative repairs to fix the trail have been presented to the public. Instead, staff just closed the trail without the proper permit or any public hearing as required under the Coastal Act. As Steve Madrone, Dick Bruce, and others have mentioned, there are less intrusive, less expensive repairs that could be made to the Van Wyck Trail, or the trail could be moved upslope if the city purchased an easement from adjacent property owners. The public wants the trail to be fixed or moved so we can preserve the scenic route to the harbor, beaches, Trinidad Head, etc., etc. Another omission in the staff report, in my opinion, was the lack of any discussion about prescriptive rights. From my own experience while living in Trinidad and talking to others, I believe prescriptive rights have been established along the Van Wyck Trail because the private property that borders the trail was often used as an extension of the trail when people would move upslope, such as myself, to make room for others to walk past, especially people with dogs or children, or to avoid uneven, muddy parts of the trail. Prescriptive rights allow the public to simply bypass the slumping area of the Van Wyck Trail, negating the need for closure because the public now has the right to access the coast and beaches via private property without permission. The bottom line is that the city has not done a vigorous analysis as requested by Coastal Commission staff to make a case for the trail's closure and forcing people to walk down a dangerous busy street to access the harbor, beaches, pier, Trinidad Head, etc. And for the reasons mentioned above, I would respectfully ask the City Council to approve my appeal, direct staff to reopen the trail, install the appropriate warning signs to protect the city's trail immunity until alternative repairs can be made to the trail or until negotiations are pursued to purchase an easement from property owners to move the trail upslope. Established prescriptive rights should be investigated as well by the Coastal Commission. And just in a parting note, PARSTAC even states in the report that the city's injury rate is well below the PARSAC average. And that is another reason that I question the need to fully close the trail instead of making repairs or moving it upslope. And thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Taves. At this point, I would like to open it up for other public comments. And we have about 2 screens worth of people dialed in, so please just start speaking if you are able to.
If I could just intervene for a moment, Mayor. I just want you to be aware that I contacted Russ Gans, our attorney, and he is on the line. So if you would like, he could elaborate a little bit on the Fair Practices Act, Political Practices Act.
Absolutely. Please do, Mr. Dan.
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So, a quick summation on some of the conflict of interest rules articulated by the Fair Political Practices Commission. Under the applicable law, a public official has a disqualifying conflict of interest in a governmental decision if it is foreseeable that the decision will have a financial impact on his or her personal finances or other financial interests. In those circumstances, there's a risk of a biased decision-making concern, and thus, a potential conflict does exist. To avoid any actual bias or the appearance of possible impropriety, a public official that has such a conflict of interest is prohibited from participating in the decision and the discussion related to the decision. Some established examples or types of interest that may result in a conflict of interest or a financial conflict of interest include, whether the government official has a business interest in any entity with an investment of $2,000 or more, which that public official is a director, officer, partner, trustee, employee, or manager. In the real property context, if there's a parcel of real property affected by the decision and the public official has an interest of $2,000 or more, including any leasehold interest in the affected real property parcel, that could also be deemed a conflict of interest. Also, there's more of a general disqualifying financial impact assessment, less specific, also a general common law conflict of interest assessment, and that in essence is whether or not the decision will have a financial impact or effect on the official such that, one, the financial impact is reasonably foreseeable to the public official that's asked to make the decision, and the financial impact is significant enough to be considered material. So generally it's deemed a financial impact is presumed to be both foreseeable and material if the financial impact, is expressly involved in the decision to be made. Also, if the government official feels that the affinity to the whatever issue that's before the council has such a significant impact that the official cannot act fairly and impartially in the decision-making process, the official also has a prerogative and right to declare a conflict of interest and not participate in the decision. And one issue I mentioned to Eli when he called and just prior to joining this phone conference is that if financial impact or conflict of interest assessment, it's really fact specific. Obviously, I don't know enough about the facts to give a competent opinion to the council at this point, but one option that may be available to the council if there's legitimate concern as to whether or not any individual council member has a interest that may rise to the level of an actual conflict such that they should not participate in the decision, would be to continue the hearing on the matter so that we could actually give you a formal legal opinion as to any individual conflict of interest, concern, or assessment for an individual council member. So unless there are any specific questions at this point, that's kind of a general synopsis of the conflict of interest protocol.
Mr. Compass has a question for you, Russ.
So do I.
Okay, go ahead.
Now that I understand the ramifications, although I live down to the end of the street away from this, I think to make this easy so there's no appearance of a conflict, I would just assume recuse myself from the vote so that there's no appearance that there's a conflict. I live down the street, but I understand this appearance of a conflict, so I just assume recuse myself to eliminate this as a problem for the city council. Make it easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
And that's,
Compass. I appreciate it.
That's certainly the council member's prerogative. Russ Gann speaking again. And council member Klompus, if you feel inclined to recuse yourself, then it's also important that you actually not participate in the discussion or be technically present for the discussion of the remaining council members that might consider the matter. In the Zoom context, I presume that that's more easily achieved. And the public meeting context, the council member is supposed to actually leave the room and avoid being present during any action or substantive discussion by the council on the appeal.
Would it be acceptable to turn the video camera off and just be invisible and not speak? Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, in fact, I'll be honest, this is a new one for me. I've never had a recusal in a Zoom meeting yet, but yeah, the reality is you're not supposed to be present such that your presence could impact the decision-making process of the other council members, and you are not to participate in the discussion. So I think if you mute yourself and turn off your video, for this discussion, it should be okay.
Thank you.
And I would agree, just because people's nonverbals can be quite compelling, and so if you're not visible or audible, then you're not here. So what you hear on your own is up to you. Mr. Grover, I believe you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just like to, say that I kind of take umbrage to somebody making insinuations that my decisions are based on some personal thing. I didn't want people using the trail while it was closed. I have a great plan to fix that trail, and it was going to give access. I have over 3.5 years of intense cliffside restoration down in Bolinas. Part of my reason for joining the council is to help fix that part, because I had moved here and I saw that it was in need of repair. Since then, I've gotten to know tribal members that consider that land sacred, and some of them do want it closed personally. So I do have to consider that in my decisions. So I really don't. I've sat here for like 1.5 years and absorbed this information. I went and educated myself on environmental science and policy so I could do this type of work. So I just want to know that I want to be in the decision-making process during this, and I don't have any inclination either way, because I'm not going to live here forever. I am only a renter, and I'm not going to try to set up people that live here for something that they don't want after I'm gone. So I do want to be part of the decision-making process, and I would appreciate it if you would contact me personally and talk to me personally about my feelings and my plans for this, because I have talked to several people, and I think a lot of insinuations were made. I saw a little girl running around the bend after a rainstorm and almost slipped and fell, and I almost caught her from falling off the edge, and then 20 seconds later, her mother came around the corner. And I said, what are you doing? She could have injured herself. And that was when it was closed too. And that's when I asked that people be more forceful about it. I have no doubt that you can navigate yourself through this trail. But it also instigates people that don't live here to think that it's open, and they come and stand in the lawn where I live, and which is a little invasive to me, which I don't think I was supposed to tolerate that. I don't mind if people walk through, and I've never been that. I'm a lot more communal than I think I get credit for. So I appreciate Mr. Gans coming in and giving us the actual law to it. And I hope that you understand my perspective better. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Davies or comments? Mr. Davies?
Yeah, so now we have, my question concerns voting quorum. And so let's assume that 2 people did recuse, but now only 1 did. So what is the voting quorum if it were down to 3? Is it the remaining members, a majority of remaining members, or is it still a quorum of sitting members?
Now,
as I understand, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Russ.
There's an actual recusal. The quorum consists of the majority of the remaining non-disqualified council members.
Okay, thank you.
All right, can we then bring it back to public comment? I'm certain that the council will have more input, but I'd like to resume with public comment. So at this point, I would like to open it up to public comment, and thank you very much, Russ, for calling back in.
Okay, and if there are any additional questions that come up, Eli can then call me and I could log back in. Other than that, believe it or not, I do actually have another obligation I'm late for. But anyway, but I will have my cell phone available. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Russ, for joining in.
Thank you.
All right, general comments from the public. Raise your hand in the chat, start talking, turn your camera on, however you wish to be identified.
Steve, this is Dick Bruce.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bruce.
I'm on record with the Planning Commission and with the council at previous meetings in favor of not closing the trail, keeping the trail open. It's a totally different experience walking on Edwards. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of noise. The view is not the same. What the city has failed to do is maintain that trail. And we keep talking about repairs, but the city has not maintained that trail. Some of the questions that have come up in terms of needing a coastal development permit for either temporary closure or actual repairs to the trail. What about just maintenance on the trail? Why can't the city go in and do just minor maintenance to that trail, get a little bit of steps put in, maybe a cable rope or something like that? Steve Madrone has suggested on more than one occasion that trail could be repaired at a relatively minor cost. I think he talked about less than $10,000. There are a number of us in the community which would be more than happy to donate our labor to help do that, which could lower the cost to the city. City needs to get off its rear end and do something about it rather than just talking about it all the time. So I am supportive of this appeal. Let's get that trail opened up and let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Mr. Kenny, I see your face on the screen. Perhaps you want to speak?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just didn't want to be first because I always have to go first and it doesn't seem right. It's the same person.
Now you're number two.
I'm glad Dick Bruce stepped up and I agree 100% with what he said. I think the appeal should be granted on the basis that the Edward Street is not the equivalent experience of walking, and it's significant that the Coastal Act has as one of its goals to maximize public access to and along the coast. Right now, the Van Wyck Trail goes along the coast, and you can see the bay, and you can see the South Bay. And when you go down Edward Street, I don't think you're going along the coast. You're surrounded by houses, and you can see the ocean at the bottom of the hill only, and that's the direction you're heading, but you're not going along the coast. So you can't really make that finding that that those are equivalent experiences. That's the technical aspect of the appeal. The practical aspect is that this city has a long tradition and history of volunteerism, and you have a group of people willing to do the legwork, work with the city staff, the public works staff, and do this internally as a repair and maintenance project. And I put a lot of time into researching the Coastal Act, the various regulations behind it, our own city codes, and I have come to the conclusion that you could do these repairs and maintenance without the need for a coastal development permit. And certainly if the commission feels strongly enough about that, they could weigh in if they wanted to. But, you know, you've already closed the trail for a whole year without even inquiring whether you needed a coastal development permit. Here, at least you have an attorney letter to support your position, and I think it's a strong one. So I don't see any reason not to go ahead and use the volunteer manpower that's standing by. We're perfectly willing to work with all the tribal entities that want to be involved in this to make sure that no artifacts are discovered or disturbed, or all the cultural aspects. And so with a little bit of money for supplies, we could have this done. It's like a 2-day job. And the rainy season's not really on us yet. I think, like Dick Bruce said in his letter, we could have this done in 30 days if the council would just, acknowledge how important this is to people, and who you are elected to represent here. So those are my comments, and I really, really hope we can get a motion to approve this appeal tonight. And I thank you for your time. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, because I wrote a 5-page letter to you. You might have some questions about something in there. Be perfectly happy to answer it.
Thank you. No questions at this time for you, Mr. Kenny, but thank you for that. Any other comments from the public? Want to make sure we have time for everyone.
Mr. Mayor, this is Ted Pease.
Go ahead, Mr. Pease.
I'd just like to endorse the previous comments. I've also written a letter, which you have in your packet, I hope. My wife and I have been walking that trail for 22 years, and I believe that, as Bryce says and Dick says that we could get this thing fixed and perfectly safe up to the standards of the insurer very quickly, and maintain it in a safe fashion. I'm sure that that's what everybody wants. I don't think it's very dangerous anyway. It's just inconvenient. We could fix that very quickly. That's all I wanted to say. I agree that the appeal should be approved and that trail should be opened as soon as possible.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Pease. Others who wish to speak?
Hi, this is Sarah from the Cherai Ancestral Society.
Go ahead, Sarah.
So the Cherai Ancestral Society supports the trail closure and the denial of this appeal. While volunteering and things like that might be something that has been practiced in the city of Trinidad for many years, we also know that it's also been incredibly destructive to cultural resources, and that it was a big problem for a long time, with citizens just getting together and going down and doing things like cutting vegetation in the study area, and doing other trail maintenance that wasn't appropriate. So we support getting the proper processes involved and getting that CDP. And this trail has been identified as being a trail that has a potential to impact cultural resources. And so this isn't just a simple process. This city is inside of the Cherai village. And so, while it might have been kind of the old practices to just kind of ignore that fact and move forward and do things that were convenient for today, we're in a different time where, we're trying to move forward in a way that is respectful of Cherai culture. And, we're for maintaining access, but not at the expense of cultural resources. So I think we have to be respectful of the process. And I think the temporary closure is appropriate while we navigate what next steps have to be taken. So proper studies can be done, and we can move forward thoughtfully. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Akana. I believe Mr. Miller's hand is up in the chat. So are you there, Dwight?
I am here. Thank you. And thank you. And Sarah, thank you very much for your comments. They're really very central to this discussion, even though they haven't been discussed as part of the appeal or the application for the coastal development permit. They were discussed at the January meeting when we were debating how to go forward with the Caltrans grant on the trail. And I am very, very strongly supportive of Native American rights and concerns. And I noted especially at that lovely one-page document that celebrated the 150 years of the incorporation of the city. It was specific to the city as a legal entity in the state of California, and there was no discussion at that point of what this meant for the Native American community that had been displaced. So it was appropriate as a 150-year celebration of the official city, but I felt, and at some time the city needs to have a long discussion about this land as Native American land and where are we relative to it. So Sarah, I thank you very much for your comments. And yet I caution us, I actually support the appeal in this particular context because I'm concerned that the city has not taken enough time to explore the ramifications of the trail relative to Native American interests, relative to the interests of the Churai family, the Churai Ancestral Society. And we're moving in an area where we're stepping very carefully to possibly permanently closing the trail. And that's actually what the basis for this appeal is, because there's an implication that this process, without a firm City of Trinidad timeline on how to reopen it, would begin to point toward permanent closure. And the permanent closure may take place because there's enough people who feel that, gosh, there might be cultural resources disturbed, so let's just close it, period. In other words, coming too soon to a decision for closure because of sensitivity, as modern people are sensitive. So I think what we have to do here is, I would, first of all, I support the appeal, unless the city can make a amendment, if you wish, to the proposed motion that says we will definitely be taking steps to keep the trail open, ensuring that we have full discussions with the Native American community on how to make that happen. In other words, there are plenty of people, and I was participating in the past couple of weeks with at least 15 people who are passionate about this trail. I am passionate about keeping it open. Many of my neighbors are. The people who've been here, have walked in here for 15, 20 years. But we want to be respectful of the Native American rights and concerns. So we need to have much deeper discussions about this, and the city needs to make a statement saying it is the intention of the city to keep this trail open, subject to complete discussions of the topic relative to Native American rights, relative to how to make it happen in a fashion that respects this particular trail, which is far superior to Walking Edwards. We all recognize that. That's the reason we're so many city residents have sent in letters saying we must keep this trail open. So basically, I'm asking the city council to, at this time, maybe even go to option 3 that was suggested. If you look carefully at the possible motion, option 3 is to continue this discussion and come back in possibly a month and say, we have decided that we want a firm discussion of the following topics, and that our intent is to keep the trail open on a permanent basis. That is what I want to happen, because almost everybody who is speaking here tonight to keep the trail open is saying so because they are concerned that closing it is going down the slippery slope toward, that closing it now for a brief period is going toward the slippery slope of closing it at some time in the future. As Kim Tay said, if the city had established a reasonable timeline to reopen the trail, she would not be objecting or filing this appeal. And I firmly am of that position. I would like the city to make a firm commitment that the trail will be reopened. And then I would remove my concerns about this appeal. But if the city will not tonight make a commitment to reopen the trail, then I am firmly in favor of supporting the appeal and going for option 2, which is to basically uphold the appeal and put in a sign that says Well, put in whatever, so just use it at your own risk. And we can go make sufficient small repairs to the trail, as Dick Bruce has said, to invite the Paulsec guy back, and he can say, okay, that's not as bad as I thought now. So a minor repair, we could probably bring it up to snuff, so it would not be any more dangerous than the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail. Basically, what we are looking for here tonight is some statement by the council that we're going to explore the deeper issues attached to this, and that there is a commitment by the council to maintain, as Sarah said, maintain access on this trail and be considerate of the cultural resources that are there. So that is my position, and I have a letter to that effect that you've read. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Hi.
Other comments?
Yeah, this is Sarah again. So I want to clarify, the Cherry Ancestral Society's position is to close the trail permanently. I don't want that to be misconstrued by my previous comment. So it is to close the trail permanently because does impact cultural resources. And I appreciate, the words that Mr. Miller spoke, but I think that, there has to be action in respect, right? And so, I can tell someone that I respect them, but if my actions don't actually follow that up, my words don't mean much. And I think that we have a long history of that, Mr. Miller. And so, if there's actual respect of Churi culture, then our request would be respected. And that means that, we wouldn't just push through because a group of 15 people decided that cultural resources aren't that important when, there's a small piece of trail that they're used to walking, and they want to keep that open. So Van Wyck Street is still there, and there is alternative routes that are available that are still pleasant to walk. You don't have to go all the way down Edwards Street. You can go down Galindo Street, down Van Wyck Street, and back to Edwards down the boardwalk, which part of that you have to do anyway if you're going down Van Wyck Trail. But I just want to make it clear that our position is not to keep the trail open, but I think that regardless of that, I don't think that it's appropriate for the city to circumvent the CDP process and try to do repairs to that trail off to the side. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Other comments? I am not seeing any other cameras come on.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, this is Bryce Kenny. I just want to make a brief rebuttal to what Sarah Lindgren said. It's clear that in her mind, the only way to respect Churi culture is for the entire city of Trinidad to everyone to get up and leave and close the city down and turn things back the way they used to be. And that is so impractical, and there's no way that's going to happen. And it's so ironic that the city has been trying for the last 8 years to give back the village site to the Native American people. And it's met with nothing but obstructionism, mainly, I think, from her and her group. And it's just an endless bureaucratic, bungling thing that here we're trying to give the village back, the most important thing down there. And instead, they want to try to expand their jurisdiction out over the entire city and take up the Van Wyck right-of-way and everything. And I think it's completely unacceptable. If the reason that the city closed the trail down is because Parsec said it was too dangerous, then that's what we should be talking about and not all this other stuff. So thank you.
And we're on the verge of making this personal, so please, you know, speak freely and consider each other in your comments. And if there is a need to meet individually, that might be a better place. But Bryce is right. We are here discussing an appeal to a planning commission approval to temporarily close the Van Wyck Trail. So any comments regarding the appeal as stated in the packet? I do not see any hands going up or cameras coming on. So at this point, I would like to bring it back to the council for further discussion now that we've heard from the public. Does any council have an opening comment to return back to our discussion here? Mr. West.
Hi, I'm glad Sarah spoke up. I think this is an important part of why this trail has been very slow to move, is because we have been very concerned about how the Turai and the UROC have felt about the trail. And so that has slowed the process a great deal. That's why you're not seeing anybody down there working on it right now. We want to make sure this is done properly. And I think that we have to continue to be sure that we're including the Turai and the UROC to find out where they stand. So I don't say we need to go to close the trail at this time, but I think we need to make sure that we have more discussion. I would love to see some kind of a town meeting, somewhere where we can get an open discussion, because this is a big deal. I love that trail too. We all do, and I'd love to see it stay open. But at the same time, I think we need to look at some of the options. And right now, to immediately talk about what we have right now, we're in the set of we're not going to be able to open a trail when it could get sued. So until we take care of that trail enough to have the lawsuit taken care of, we just can't open it. Unless there's something that I don't know about, it can't be open. But so I think what we need to do right away is find a way to get an open discussion. So we don't have. I don't want to. This is the Turai are trying to find a way to protect their cultural land, and we're trying to find a way to keep the trail open. I think we can come together and at least find out where there might be an answer, but I think we're going to have to come out and talk about it somehow. And I think we've talked earlier about the possibility of being able to talk things over, and I think this may be something we need to work on to find a way to bring us together in some kind of a meeting where we can hear both sides and get a full understanding of how this how we feel about it. And what we have here, we have people who are very concerned about opening the trail, and we have people and we have Turai who are very concerned about us, what the future is, and I'm very concerned about any kind of lawsuit. So I don't want that thing open as as long as there is a possibility of a lawsuit. Once that's taken care of, I think we need to make sure of, or sooner, in fact, right away, I think we need to find out both sides of this and see where we want to go with this. But right now, I think the reason you're seeing this thing slow down and going down there and fixing it is because we do have some cultural issues that we want to take care of. And I think that's something we need to work on right away with both. And actually, both the Turai and the Yurok tribe should be involved in this. And we should hear their point of view, and all of us try to be respectful and hear their point of view and get an understanding of how important this trail is.
Thank you, Jack. I do want to echo what you're saying, that we are only discussing a temporary closure. I hear the passion, and I hear the comments made to maintain access, to maintain a beautiful trail, to maintain what we're used to. But tonight we are following we are being asked to consider an appeal to a decision that was made following our insurance recommendation to close the trail, and to do so until either the trail is repaired or a final decision is made. So I'm going to echo also what Jack said, that I think we're getting, except for PG&E power outages, we're getting better at Zoom or WebEx, whatever we're on. And I think that making a commitment, as Dwight mentioned, to not a commitment to already have the determination made, but a commitment to bring this community together with the sole intention of deciding what to do with this topic is really where we need to head. And tonight, I really do want to encourage the 4 council members who have remained in this discussion to consider the appeal and the materials in the packet that the Planning Commission has vetted this trail closure, and there's a recommendation in the packet. So I would ask that the council consider making a motion and making a decision on this project. Yes, Mr. Davies.
Okay, so I would like to address the appeal. I have some comments to make here. So I really like to look at the whole picture and the process of how things are done. And this process for the CDP has been fraught with inconsistency since the beginning. This trail was closed for over a year which precluded any possibility for the public to appeal the closure. The CDP just came into existence, was it July? And we've known about that this needed to happen much longer than this. So the process has not gone the way that it needed to go. The CDP does not contain a plan for reopening the trail. That to me would be an essential element to granting a CDP for a closure of a trail. Changing the closure or modifying the length of the closure or modifying the CDP at this meeting seems very inappropriate because we are addressing the appeal at hand. We are not addressing a moving target that it would become if we start considering many different options at this point. I'd also like to say that the striping already existed on Edwards Street before this new project. It was not as bright and wide as it is right now, but there was a white stripe in the place that the one was already there. So I heard that was mentioned as, that was a way to make it safe and nicer for people to walk down the street, but there was already a white stripe there. The access is not the same going down Edwards Street. It is not an equivalent walk, and that's been pointed out by many people. Just from an air quality standpoint, it is really not an option. And that may be poo-pooed by a lot of people, but if you walk down that street on a regular basis, you would definitely see that it is an air quality problem right there with cars coming up the street. I'd also like to address the comments made about lawsuits. Lawsuits possibilities in the city abound. We have a restaurant that allows parking in the pedestrian right-of-way on Trinity Street. Someone walking down the sidewalk all of a sudden is now walking into a vehicle parked where a sidewalk should be. That is a possibility for a lawsuit. Our sidewalks are not wide enough. There are many places where people could get far more damaged and hurt by moving vehicles and other situations for lawsuits. There's specific protections in the state, which I would still like to know more about and investigated, called the California Trails Immunity Bill, or whatever the law is that pertains to that. I'd also like to point out that I don't know the exact timeline of this, but there was a major repair done on Parker Creek Trail with steps. And I don't know if that ever went through any type of planning. I know it was all done by volunteer labor, and the steps are very nice, but I'm not exactly sure that any of that went through a process. That's a repair thing that has happened in this town. So I'm trying to talk about process and how things need to be done. One more thing I'd like to say is that trails go places. The analogy of walking to the end of Axel Lindgren Trail and stopping right there, because then you get to see the vista. The trail ends on the beach. And then I also heard that, well, maybe we could just put a sign right there that says continue at your own risk. That is completely contrary to what we are discussing tonight. There's already been something on the Van Wyck Trail as I said before, recommended by our PARSAC, by our risk management group. I'm prepared to put up a motion to uphold the appeal as written by Kimberly Tays.
Thank you for your comments, and we do have a motion before the council. Do we have a second? Hearing no second, unfortunately, Mr. Davies, we can't vote on it. I do want to also echo what you said, that we're not here to start wordsmithing and changing the decision of the Planning Commission. We are here to approve. And I know that there were recommendations in our packet, several different varieties of recommendations, but we are not here to change the language of the decision of the commission. We're here to either approve or deny the appeal. So we do want to be careful on that. I would like to bring it back to the council. Do we have another motion? I'm happy to make one if we don't.
Yes, I make a motion that we deny the appeal.
I second that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Jack had a discussion point, it looked like. You're muted, Jack.
Who's muted?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought Jack was voting. Jack, you need to unmute yourself. Yelling won't help.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay. I just want to make sure we still have a 6-month timeline on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That ends what date?
We have 3 months left. It's already been closed for 3 months on the CDP.
All right.
So 3 months to hear the appeal.
Good. That's 3 months. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Now I'm ready to vote. Sorry.
Okay.
Well,
So we have a
Planning
motion to
Commission,
deny
it would
the
be,
appeal, and we have a second.
Trevor's trying to make a comment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
it would be from the effective date of the approval, and so the Planning Commission's approval has been stayed, so it would be from the date of your approval.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Our approval?
Oh.
Okay, so that helps with the timeline. So if we, whatever we do tonight, that starts the clock over, is what I'm hearing. Okay. And really, to reiterate, this is a temporary, yeah, well, we already said that. So we have a first to deny and a second to deny the appeal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Mr. Davies. Okay, so the vote passes 3-1 to deny the appeal. And again, I want to reiterate that many positive comments and points have been brought up, and the city is committed to seeing this thing through. So please look for future agenda items, future meetings where this will be the sole agenda item with enough time to vet it properly. So thank you for your discussion. Moving on, the number 4 discussion decision regarding Prop 68 Coastal Resiliency Planning Grant. I turn this over to Trevor and/or Eli.
Over to.
And we also have Becky on the phone or on the call. So I will actually turn it over to Becky, and then if Trevor wants to weigh in.
Becky, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was unmuting. I'm not sure if you want a presentation of the project or, because I assume people are familiar with the materials in the packet. We have heard from several groups about in response to my invitation for input or to invite them to be involved in the project. And I think it says in the packet, the Trinidad Bay Watershed Council would like to participate. The County of Humboldt submitted a letter of support for the project. And the Chari Ancestral Society and the Yurok tribe responded to our invitation to be involved in the project. And so we have, we will be including in the task 2, which is public engagement and partnerships, meetings with the Chari management team to discuss and identify projects that relate to the Chari study area. And that we just discussed that today. So I'm still working to incorporate. I don't have language, I'm sorry, for that yet. And the deadline is Friday. So we are hoping to, assuming that the council supports submitting this proposal for for consideration by the Ocean Protection Council for funding. This is a planning grant, and it will be framed in a way that we do not have to get all the details completely nailed down in here, because it would be, because it's meant to be a process, collaborative process. Part of the process would be determined by the participants and community members as we go into the project if it's funded.
Thank you, Becky. Any questions for Becky regarding the grant? And it's due, 3 days from now. So, yes, Mr. Davey.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. Could you explain task 4 in a little more detail? I see specifically temporary utility repairs and USDA for permanent. And it says match. Can you explain what that means? Would this apply to the Van Wyck water line?
So, okay, let me just back up. So item 4, task 4 is to develop concept designs and implementation measures, which is taking us a step closer to being able to apply for funding for projects or concepts that have been identified in this plan. And that's the 2 lines below. So there's the total to be requested, $435,000. And then the match is, so the part of what the Ocean Protection Council is interested is seeing that their funds are leveraged by local and federal funding. And so I think it was included in the packet for September, but the city, so the temporary repairs that are being completed on the water main and the stormwater on the Van Wyck right of way are being, the city's already committed that. It's sort of a separate project, but it's because it's related to the scope of this project, we're proposing that as match. And we've applied for funding to the U.S. Department of Agriculture to fund development of a preliminary engineering report for the eventual development of the plans for the permanent relocation. However, that part is not planned, but that is something the city's identified already as needing to happen and as working toward that. But that is essentially within the scope of this project as a piece of planning. So we're proposing that as match. There's actually another piece of match that I haven't included in this yet. The city's stormwater project that's underway will be conducting water quality monitoring in the Trinidad Bay after the completion of the stormwater project. And that monitoring would be useful information within this planning project. So that could also be included as a potential match. And hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, so the city's outlay and whatever USDA could possibly receive, we could receive from USDA, be considered as a match to leverage the funds of this grant, is what you're saying, I think.
That's correct. It's demonstrating that the city and other agencies are investing in this area and for these tasks, and it leverages the Ocean Protection Council's funds.
Okay, I have another question. So thank you for reiterating that it's a planning grant, which, as I was looking through here, so the public outreach is where the actual projects will be derived from. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Because I don't see any exact, I don't see any specific projects.
No, there's no specific projects that are being put forward in this proposal.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'll just explain, the public engagement and partnerships is one task, and the Integrated Coastal Resilience Action Plan is a separate task because of the challenges of dividing the budget up. So the public engagement and partnerships piece is essentially the public and the stakeholder process, community engagement piece. So the funds in that budget line would pay for city staff and consultants for that part of it. The Integrated Coastal Resilience Action Plan is working in parallel, and it would be including the city planner and the city engineer and potentially other consultants that could be hired that have the technical expertise for the technical aspects of this. Mm-hmm. So it would work essentially in a similar way that the city's integrated coastal watershed management planning process occurred between 2006 and 2008, where multiple agencies and parties collaborated to develop a plan in parallel with a public education and public input process.
Okay, I have one more question for you. Or
if that answers your question.
Yeah, sort of. I think I'm getting a better picture. So the outcome of this would be a plan for specific
Correct.
projects for coastal resiliency, whatever that means. As far as I'm assuming, it means combating sea level rise and allowing people to live in this area comfortably, with sea level rise maybe happening, other issues. So will this look, if we receive this grant and go through this project process, in your opinion, does this look favorable for applying for funding to implement these projects that come out of this planning phase? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I would say this is a pretty important preliminary step to planning projects for implementation. So, because as we've learned from having the watershed plan in place, which had a lot of information to back up the need for the projects and to allow people like your city grant writer to put together grant proposals. Say the stormwater project is an example. So we've probably been awarded around $20 million since 2008 to implement projects that were identified in that plan. And that's not just the city of Trinidad. Other entities have also been able to use that project to propose implementation of projects. So I would say in the same way, this project and plan will take us into the future, having gone through a very good process with stakeholders in the public and that has technical merit to identify projects and get a couple sort of a little farther down the road that then actually in future rounds of this Ocean Protection Council funding, there'll be 2 more rounds. They would like to see the city, if the city is awarded this and we develop our plan, they would like to see us implement 1 or more projects, and they would probably be supportive of, I mean, I'm not saying we would win the competition and get an award, but they're expecting, they would hope that if we're doing this planning grant that we will continue on to implement some projects.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's kind of what I thought. And thank you for explaining that. And I want to, I hope you understand that I have like a lot of questions, and it's in no means because I have opposition to the project. I just want to understand what the project entails and what I'm going to be voting on. So thank you very much. That's it from me.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, you hit on some questions I had too, so I appreciate that. Other questions from the council for Becky? Any public comment on the Prop 68 Coastal Resilience Planning Grant and pursuing it by Friday?
This is Jackie Hoster-Carmison, CEO, Trinidad Rancheria. As everyone is... Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As you're well aware, Trinidad Rancheria is the property owner at the Trinidad Harbor. And we also have numerous planning studies, policies, and we are vitally involved in working on coastal resiliency. I do believe Becky reached out to Jonah Savage, our EPA director, and asked if he would, if the Rancheria would like to be part of this project. We have not done a formal response, however, and we plan on doing a formal response. So we definitely need to be part of this project, and we need to be able to share the information that we would have with OPC as well. So, and previously on the previous item on Van Wyck Trail, Trinidad Rancheria was left out. I tried to engage several times and was not recognized. So Trinidad Rancheria would respectfully request that any information on Van Wyck Trail or any request for consultation include Trinidad Rancheria. Thank you.
And Ms. Hosser, I'm sorry, I did not see your hand up or notice that you were trying to listen in. So that was not an intentional oversight. So thank you for those comments. Other public comments regarding this discussion item? All right, at this point, bring it back to the council for action. Do do we have a motion regarding Prop 68 Coastal Resiliency Planning Grant and authorizing the city to engage or to apply for it? Oh, sorry, Ms. Provo.
You know, it's been an interesting night with the internet and how we've had to rely on technology. And I've been in and out of this meeting, so I apologize for not being able to be up to speed on all the conversations that have happened. Very important discussions tonight. Thank you, Mayor Lundwick and Council. As far as this project, I just wanted to thank Eli and Becky reaching out to the Yurok Tribal Council today for a meeting and in collaboration with the Shirai Ancestral Society. Many of the projects that may be decided upon will affect the Yurok Aboriginal territory. And I just wanted to thank the city having a conversation with us regarding this project. And I do appreciate Becky meeting with our tribe about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Provo. Other comments from the community? All right, we are a skeleton crew right now, so let's bring it back to the council for action. Do we have a motion regarding this discussion?
I'll make a motion that we direct staff to submit a full proposal for coastal resilience planning grant program due on November 13th.
First with Mr. Grover, second with Mr. Klompus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for this work. That is quite an impressive task from March 21 to January of 2024. So we look forward to lots of opportunities to work on coastal resilience. So thank you on that. And our final agenda item for this evening is the annual Unmet Transit Needs Hearing. This is something that we do every year where we seek input from the community to see if our transit needs are being met. Eli, do you have further discussion on this that you wish to share? Sorry, I didn't mean to get you when you were eating your food.
Sorry about that. Yeah, this is an annual thing that the request is made by Humboldt Transit to find out if there's any unmet transit needs in the city. Of course, we are served by Humboldt Transit Authority. And I don't know if there's anyone in the public, whether it's the council or the public itself that has any comments. And then also Gabe has put this on the agenda and he may want to weigh in. But basically, we would like to get some input from the community as to what they feel would improve the transit needs to the city of Trinidad.
And then also just to remind folks that in the packet is a description of what need is and how it is determined whether or not it's a need that the transit authority can meet. So just make sure that folks are able to see that. Go ahead, Gabe. Gabe, text. There we go.
Got me. I think I want to let Marcella, if she's on the call, go ahead and speak for on this.
Yes, good evening, council members, mayor, and members of the public. My name is Marcella May. I'm the executive director of the Humboldt County Association of Governments. So our agency is the Regional Transportation Planning Agency. And one of our duties that's in the Transportation Development Act passed in, I think, 1972, is that we oversee the unmet transit needs process every year. So we accept comments year-round from the public on what they'd like to see happen in transit. the end of December every year. We end the process only in terms of what will be in the report for the next fiscal year. So members of the public can make comments year-round. We'd like to hear from you tonight. But Humboldt HCOG's website is www.hcaog.net, and you can find more information on that website. I would like to just add that this year is different due to COVID. So our transit agencies ridership has been down about 70%. I don't think it's increased very much since that was last reported to me. And when we get comments for unmet needs, we do analyze them, basically looking at operational feasibility as well as financial. So we work with the Humboldt Transit Authority to make sure the road is fine, that there's a safe place for bus stops if it's a new service. And for financial sustainability, we look at what we call the fare box. And that is that the ridership should pay for 10% of the operation costs, which can be very expensive. So it's hard to do any transit service under $100,000. I just going to throw that number out there, but so that would mean, for an easy example, $10,000 would have to come annually from riders. And we do allow 3 years to get up to that point. But with COVID this year, we do not see being able to make that finding because ridership is low because of the stay-at-home order and the social distancing. So Humboldt Transit Authority currently is not allowing a full bus to ride due to social distancing. That doesn't mean that we're not interested in what the public has to say. And I do see Richard Johnson just came on. Richard Johnson is the chair of our Social Service Transportation Advisory Council. That's a committee that HCOG has required by law to oversee this process. So any comments we receive are analyzed by that group. We call them the SSTAC. And the ultimate decision is the HCOG board to make there's one of 3 findings if there are unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. So I hope I didn't confuse anyone anymore, but I am absolutely available to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Marcella. Any questions for Ms. May on the transit needs and submitting comments? Anything you wish to add, Mr. Johnson, regarding your role?
Yes, just real quickly, not necessarily my role, but I just wanted to remind everyone that I'm the Trinidad representative for the SSTAC. And so I'm available if anyone has any issues related to transportation or would like to participate in the unmet transit needs process. By all means, don't feel free to contact me. I really would appreciate any input that you could provide. A side note, I just wanted to recognize Marcella. She is retiring at the end of the year or soon, whichever comes first, as the executive director of HCOG. And I just wanted to publicly thank her for her service and her excellent leadership. I've been involved with SSTAC for a number of years now, and I've always appreciated her leadership and her ability to solve some of the complicated problems when it comes to unmet transit needs. So Marcella, thank you very much and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you, Richard. If my computer had a camera, you'd see my face red. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Any comments for Marcella then regarding the unmet transit need? I don't believe there's an action item that we need or an action that we need to take on this. But thank you very much for your work, and perhaps we will see someone from your office next year, since apparently it won't be you, Marcella, so congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. That concludes the discussion action agenda items for this evening. Again, thanks for the participation. I would like to put forth for future agenda items a single item for the second meeting this month, where we solidify this government-to-government communications The work that we started with Mr. Gans earlier in the evening, it seems like quite a long time ago. But I propose that we, if the counselors are able to meet again the last week of this month. That's Thanksgiving week, so I'm not sure what people's travel plans are or stay put plans, but that's what I propose that we do, and just focus on that, because without that, we're not really able to continue to benefit from the connections that we're making on smaller scale. We really want to make those on a larger scale as a city. So how are the counselors feeling about setting aside the last Tuesday of the month to dedicate to this topic, with the goal of walking away with a policy in place?
I fully support that. Love to get it done this month.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would show up for that, especially just that. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, you just said?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I would support that with the comment that at our last meeting with Russ Gans, that all of those comments that we've made and public comment and everything, it all needs to be taken into consideration and put together in a package that we can look at and glean something from. So it's not just another, well, that looks good, let's see what happens next month. So that's my push for that.
So then how about this? Because I agree that we don't want to table anything, because this is really holding us up for some other important activities. I think we ought to just direct Eli to reach out to Russ and say, can you have something solid for the council in 2 weeks? We don't know what his schedule is. He's done a lot of the work, but we need to put it into something that we can discuss and vote on at the end. So does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, and there's information about how other municipalities in this region deal with this. I'd really like that looked at, and the benefits of how another city might be working with consultation. And I really push that, and understanding somewhere in our policy that it's that SB 18 takes priority, and we need to I think Russ understands that fairly well. So I think that would be, I think it'd be worth our time. It'd be nice to get something that we can agree on.
So how about this, Eli, can you reach out to the council by email really anytime this week, as soon as you've heard from Russ, and see if that fits his timeline? So the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And again, this is a hope. We don't know what his schedule is and what everyone else's, but we really need to just put a pin in this thing and say we've got a policy, and then start using it.
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Eli?
Yeah, that works fine. I'll give him a call tomorrow.
I'm not opposed to a doodle poll going out for a different time if it works with the lawyer better, if it works for Russ, because it does. It's the only thing we're doing, right? It's the one item. So
it's the one item I want to be able to dedicate enough time to end with a product, end with a policy that's ready to enact.
Yeah. So
if possible. I mean, we don't want to rush it, but we need something. We need after 3 months. It's hard to say that seriously, but we do need something in place. And I think there's a lot of agreement on that, just from all the head nods. So,
yeah, if you may, I would like to mention that I have received some requests from some of the tribal entities that they would like to weigh in. So we certainly would like to have them, see whatever we're coming up with, and just get their input.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get it done.
Well, if we're okay, I don't know if we have any other time-sensitive topics that need to be met in a public setting before the end of the month, but I'd like to really just focus on that, and then we can start talking about December's meeting in the future. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
And let me ask, I was going to ask, just since everybody's at least the council is on the call still. Let's say that if Russ's schedule permits to have something in the day rather than in the evening, is there any time in the day that would work, or it has to be sometime after 5?
Can't do daytime. Unless, yeah. That week I could actually, maybe, but prior to that I couldn't. Or after.
Yeah, that on Tuesday or Monday I could be more flexible because I'll have enough time to block my schedule out. But I'm still working that week, so if we can adjust it, yeah, just let me know.
Okay.
Afternoon is best, though.
Yeah, that's why I did the doodle poll, because then we can all just filter it out and come up with something. All right.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor,
We are. I think we are adjourned here.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone. Have a good evening.